Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed guests and dedicated advocates for climate action. We're privileged to have the steadfast support of the Embassy of the United States of America, a dedicated partner in advancing meaningful dialogues on energy innovation, sustainability, and progress. With their support, Climate Governance Malaysia warmly welcomes you to our online webinar, Where Does Nuclear Energy Fit in the Energy Transition? So it's an honor to stand before you as your MC for this remarkable gathering. Over to you, Dato' Tong. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Okay, there you go. Yes, thank you, Sean. As mentioned, my name is NK Tong. We're recording this on the morning of 4th December. Welcome to this morning's webinar, Where Does Nuclear Energy Fit in the Energy Transition, organized by Climate Governance Malaysia and supported by the US Embassy and the US State Department. Before we get started, I'd like to turn it over to two people for opening remarks. And firstly, I'd like to welcome Datin Sunita Rajkumar, Chairperson of Climate Governance Malaysia, for her opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you so much, NK. Great to see you here. And thanks so much for helping us out at CGM. Climate Governance Malaysia is over 5 years old now, and we're riding the wave of such great momentum, private sector agitating for increased sustainability and climate ambition. We just ran our national flagship event, the National Climate Governance Summit, in its second year with an international advisory panel. We supported the Ministry of Environment at COP29 in Baku with a 9-day parallel virtual program featuring over 110 speakers on top of our regular webinar and masterclass series. We have 6,500 subscribers to our newsletters and a 50% open rate. And even so, it is ironic that in the climate crisis, which is so mainstream now, simple enough for a child or teenager to understand, yet intractable enough that since Paris in December 2015, woefully inadequate progress has been made. Warming is happening at an unprecedented rate. Global temperatures, this is likely the first year to hit 1.5 degrees of warming, and alarmingly, oceans are also warming far faster than we anticipated. And as we know, warmer air holds more moisture, leading to torrential rainfalls. And in Malaysia, in 5 days, we're seeing 6 months of rain. Separately, we're also seeing the converging of the carbon and biodiversity COPs. So not just the emphasis on reducing emissions, but how an increasing global population can be treading far more lightly on our Earth, which we have taken for granted. And in this defining journey where there is no roadmap, no silver bullet, many boardrooms are going through the same conversations which we are thinking through at CGM. Where and what are the commercial solutions? If you want to be part of the solution and no longer part of the problem, what is the roadmap? As a country and as a region, do we have the capacity and capabilities to explore, to adopt, and to benefit from technologies which would facilitate a smooth and just transition? And so today, in collaboration with the US Embassy and the US State Department, for which we're very grateful, we're pleased to bring you this 2-part webinar series, Where Does Nuclear Energy Fit in the Energy Transition? Some of the questions we want to unpack: what is the current state of this high density, high potential, yet highly stigmatized source of energy? What could go wrong in the context of all the other things which are going wrong around us? What happens to the waste? If needed, do we need as a country, what do we need as a country to build the capacity to host a facility, whether large scale or SMR? I am looking forward to this series and the upcoming webinars which CGM will be organizing so that we can collectively learn, we can collectively understand more, and collectively make better informed decisions about our future. Thank you so much to all the speakers, and NK, moderator, back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Sunita. Now, before we move on, let's hear also from Dr. Kirsten Cutler, who is the Senior Strategist for Nuclear Energy Innovation at the US Department of State, Bureau of International Security and Non-Proliferation. She has 24 years of experience on nuclear safety, security, and non-proliferation, and leads the department's efforts supporting energy security, emerging technologies, and industrial growth through the use of US advanced nuclear energy technologies and supply chains. Her CV is much, much longer, but in the interest of time, I turn it over to Dr. Kirsten.
Thank you so much, NJ, and thanks, NK, and thanks to all who have joined online for this important seminar. First off, I want to express our gratitude to the State Department's Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs for supporting this program. It's great to be able to share the experience of U.S. experts on nuclear energy with our Malaysian friends. And I also want to thank the Climate Governance Malaysia and Datin Sunita for its partnership and support of the U.S. Embassy's activities in Malaysia, and for those very thoughtful comments. My name is Kirsten Cutler, as you heard, and I am a senior strategist for nuclear innovation in the Department of State's Bureau of International Security and Nonproliferation. I help countries gain access to the latest nuclear energy technologies to help catalyze economic development, improve energy security, mitigate carbon emissions, and enable opportunities for technological advancement and job creation. We are excited that countries in the ASEAN region and community are now considering civil nuclear energy as a clean energy solution that can help meet critical energy security needs. In the United States, we have over 70 years of experience with nuclear energy and really pride ourselves on prioritizing the highest international standards for safety, security, and nonproliferation. To us, it is important that safety comes first. We have worked with a number of countries in the region on capacity building through our foundational infrastructure for the responsible use of small modular reactor technology, or FIRST program. It's a very long acronym. But FIRST is a capacity building program, and it has been really exciting to see the interest in the participants and the commitment on exploring safe, clean energy options. We are very pleased that Malaysia is joining the FIRST program as its newest bilateral partner, and we look forward to future collaboration. Malaysia has a lot of ambitious plans for its energy transition, and as we know, implementing them won't be easy or cheap, but once in place, nuclear energy provides clean energy 24/7 for up to 80 years. We have been watching with great interest Malaysia's exploration of the opportunities associated with nuclear energy, and we welcome this. The United States believes that nuclear energy is a critical component of our clean energy future. We have invested billions of dollars in developing and commercializing small modular reactors, or SMRs. Our first SMR plants are now under construction in places like Idaho National Labs and Romania. We are very excited about the unique advantages offered by the new technologies and believe they hold the promise for being game changers in the global clean energy transition. I understand that Malaysia seeks to become the digital epicenter of Southeast Asia. This has been especially evident in recent months with announcements of over 16 billion in AI-oriented data centers in Malaysia. 16 billion just from US companies. These companies are demanding clean energy to meet their own low carbon or zero carbon commitments. SMRs and other advanced nuclear technologies can provide the stable baseload power needed to accommodate this future energy demand. As you may have heard, tech giants Microsoft, Google, and Amazon have all announced agreements with US advanced reactor suppliers just in the last 3 months. When Malaysia is ready, the United States welcomes discussions surrounding nuclear cooperation, including messaging to help the Malaysian public understand the value proposition associated with nuclear energy, stakeholder engagement, workforce development, industry coordination, and other strategic planning. I look forward to hearing Judy share with us her experience on this important topic. Thank you again for joining this virtual seminar on this increasingly important topic. With that, I turn it back to you, NK.
Thank you, Dr. Kirsten. So Climate Governance Malaysia has been actively discussing and planning this webinar series, probably for the better part of a year. And it's serendipitous that the Malaysian government has also signaled in the last couple of months that we are looking into nuclear energy, both from the remarks of YB Nik Nazmi, our Minister of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability, back in September, and also our Deputy Prime Minister, YB, Dr. Sri Fadila Yusof, who is also the Minister of Energy Transition. So this morning, we are having a two-part series, where does nuclear energy fit in the energy transition? And it'll run today and also on 9th of January. Today, we're focusing on the basics of nuclear energy, in other words, Nuclear 101. And then on the 9th of January, we'll also explore the way forward. We'll look into the US example, its goals from the advanced nuclear pathway to commercial liftoff of tripling nuclear energy from the current 100 gigawatts to 300 gigawatts in 2050. Judy will also be discussing steps forward based on examples from around the world and what lessons perhaps Malaysia can take away. And that'll be on the 9th of January. But today, we have Judy Greenwald, who is the Executive Director of the Nuclear Innovation Alliance. She'll take us through the basics of nuclear energy for the next 30 to 40 minutes. And that will leave us plenty of time till 11:30 for questions. So before I hand it over to Judy, please post your questions in the Q&A box to make this session more interactive and relevant to you. So over to you, Judy.
Thanks so much. Can everyone hear me okay and see me?
Yep, you're good.
Awesome. Okay, so I will share my screen. And can everyone see this slide okay?
Yes, we can.
Awesome, great. So as NK said, our topic for today is where does nuclear energy fit in the energy transition? And this is part one, and we'll do part one today and part two about a month from now. And I'll start by telling you all a little bit about my organization, the Nuclear Innovation Alliance, or NIA. We are a nonprofit, nonpartisan think and do tank based in Washington, D.C., and our mission is to help create the conditions for success for advanced nuclear energy so it can play a major role as a climate and energy security solution. NIA identifies barriers, performs technical analysis, and engages with stakeholders and policymakers to inform policy and catalyze action. And here are some of the covers. We also, in addition to our other talents, we like to have pretty report covers. So these are some of our reports that you can find on our website. Starting with a little basic background, and sorry for those of you who already know this, but it's good to get us all on the same page. Nuclear reactions release energy stored in the bonds of the nucleus of an atom. The two main types of nuclear reactions are fusion and fission. In fusion, which is on the left side, you have two smaller atoms that you fuse together, hence the name fusion, and that releases energy. And on the right-hand side is an example or a cartoon of fission, where you have a larger atom and you break that atom into two parts and you splitting the atom, and its splitting is fission, and that's where that name comes from. Generally, just to sort of give you an idea, and let's see if I can move this over so you all can see. So just to give you some idea of the relative amounts of energy that we're talking about, a typical chemical combustion reaction would give you 4 electron volts for an individual reaction, whereas fusion would be 17,600,000 electron volts, and nuclear fission would give you 200 million electron volts. So it's just a lot of energy per reaction. We're going to focus today on fission, and fission releases neutrons and energy. And it starts with, as I said earlier, it starts with a large atom. Not all atoms, most atoms can't undergo this process, but there are isotopes or particular varieties of atoms that can undergo fission. They're called fissile materials. You bombard them with neutrons, and then that atom splits, and it produces the neutrons, additional neutrons, which then can bombard other atoms, and then you have what's called a chain reaction, where the neutrons can sustain a chain of continual fission. And they also produce lots of energy in the quantities I just described earlier. Again, as a reminder, 4 electron volts for a chemical combustion reaction and 200 million for nuclear fission. Nuclear energy has really high energy density per unit of mass. You get quite a bit of energy. On the left-hand side, you'll see that there's this one uranium fuel pellet about the size of your fingertip, has as much energy as 17,000 cubic feet of natural gas, 149 gallons of oil, or a ton of coal. And the average American's lifetime energy consumption could be met by the energy contained in 1 soda can of nuclear fuel. And since Americans on average use a lot more energy than most other citizens of other countries, this would likely be smaller for citizens of other countries. Nuclear energy is firm, meaning you can count on it, and it's highly reliable. In the United States, this is a visual of the capacity factor, which means the percentage of the time that the power plant is up and running. And this is the capacity factor by energy source in 2020. And as you can see, nuclear is up 92.5% of the time, much more, used much more, and has a much more higher capacity than geothermal, natural gas, hydropower, coal, wind, or solar. Nuclear reactions release no greenhouse gases or air pollution. And of course, it's because of the climate issue that many people are sort of taking a second look at nuclear energy now. It also has other benefits, but the realization or the remembering, we all are starting to remember that nuclear energy releases no greenhouse gases, and that's become more and more important. It also has other significant safety and public health benefits. And this is a chart of mortality by electricity source. And this is deaths from accidents and air pollution per terawatt hour generated. And as you can see, nuclear is quite low. Solar is the lowest. Then comes nuclear, wind, hydropower, gas, biomass, oil, coal, and brown coal. Nuclear energy provides a multifaceted value proposition. This is a chart from a report called the Pathways to Commercial Liftoff, Advanced Nuclear, and this was by the US Department of Energy. And the key for this is that dark green is high score on this different attributes. The light green is medium and low is gray or pink, depending on how it's looking on your screen. And nuclear energy scores really high on clean, it's firm, it doesn't use a lot of land, that's because of its energy density. It requires relatively low transmission build out because it can be located near to the load or where the demand is. And it can also be used at sites that already have transmission infrastructure. It's also got concentrated local economic benefits. Nuclear power plants create a lot of really good jobs. And it can be used not only for electricity, but also for direct heat. Other power solutions or different alternative energy sources have a lot of these attributes, but really none have across the board these attributes that nuclear energy does. And so it's really a good choice in many ways compared to pretty much any other energy source. Nuclear energy is an important complementary clean energy source to help fully decarbonize the energy system. We believe at the Nuclear Innovation Alliance that it's not just about nuclear energy. We think you need nuclear energy to have a decarbonized and reliable energy system, but you don't only need nuclear energy. Nuclear energy plays a role as a complement to many other types of energy sources. So all of the sectors that we have to decarbonize for meeting our climate goals can use nuclear energy, either directly or indirectly. We have to decarbonize our building sectors, our industry, our transportation, and we can use nuclear energy can make heat, it can make electricity, and it can make fuels like hydrogen and ammonia, which also can be used as a means of long-term energy storage. So all of these different forms of energy can be used to decarbonize buildings, industry, and transportation. And then on the right-hand side, we show the different parts of a decarbonized and reliable energy system. It's going to have firm clean energy like nuclear energy and some other options, variable clean energy like renewables like solar and wind, as well as clean energy storage, these fuels that can either be used as fuels or as storage mechanisms. This is a global nuclear energy map, and it shows that this is the dark blue is the countries with the most nuclear power at the moment, and it goes down in shades into white, which of the countries that don't have nuclear energy. So globally, there are 439 reactors in 32 countries with a capacity of close to 400 gigawatts. Okay. In the United States, we have 94 reactors at 53 plants in 28 states. A lot of our power plants have multiple reactors. The reactor technologies we use are 63 pressurized water reactors and 31 boiling water reactors. So we use both technologies. There are more PWRs, pressurized water reactors, we refer to as PWRs, and boiling waters are BWRs, and we use a lot of both. And other countries, we see both of these types of reactors throughout the world. The fleet performance in the United States is we get 46% of our carbon-free electricity from nuclear energy. We are avoiding 437 million tons of annual avoided carbon emissions. And trying to move my thing so you can't see it. And we get 72 million of our homes are powered by nuclear energy, and it produces 475,000 well-paying jobs. And I'm now realizing that we may have had some of those statistics for global. Let me see if I can go back without messing this up. Yeah, so I didn't mention that globally, we have avoided cumulatively 60 gigatons of carbon emissions by using nuclear power over the past several decades. And currently, about 9.2% of the world's primary energy comes from nuclear, and 25% of the carbon-free power comes from nuclear globally. Great. Just so that we're not totally US focused, I thought I'd also mention Japan. I know there's a lot of interest in what's been going on in Japan. And Japan has now 33 operable reactors, 13 have restarted, 12 have applied for restart. The others are in various stages of considering restart. And it translates into 11 gigawatts of operating nuclear capacity. As many of you know, Japan went through a period where they shut down a lot of reactors, and now they're in a mode where they are reopening reactors and actually building new ones. Nuclear power plants convert energy from nuclear reactions that we described earlier into usable electricity, steam, and process heat. Generally, you would go from a nuclear reaction, which would produce heat. That could be used directly in industrial processes or for thermal energy storage. It could also be converted into steam, which can be used to make hydrogen or district heating. And the steam can be used to make electricity that can be used to power desalination, off-grid applications, or grid electricity. And there are other uses as well. This is a visual of a pressurized water reactor. A lot of a power plant that's a nuclear power plant is sort of like a lot of other power plants. Basically, everything outside this containment structure you might see in a conventional power plant that uses gas or coal or another fuel. So within the containment structure is the nuclear part of the power plant. It has a reactor vessel, it has a pressurizer, a steam generator, which goes to a turbine, which runs a generator, which makes electricity and sends it to the grid. And this is a PWR. So a lot of the portions of a power plant would look kind of the same. It's just that the way you're making the heat that's going to make the steam that's going to generate the turbine and get you to electricity is you use a nuclear reactor, when you might use another source of heat to make electricity and other types of power plants. And this is a little a larger version of what's going on inside the reactor vessel, which is the reactor core, which is made up of fuel. We start with nuclear fuel pellets, and that's assembled into fuel rods and into fuel assemblies. And this is what's happening, where these reactions are happening inside the reactor. A boiling water reactor has a lot of similarities to a pressurized water reactor. You might be able to tell it's a little bit simpler in terms of fewer systems that you have to manage. On the other hand, with boiling water reactors, you have to handle both steam and liquid water. In a pressurized water reactor, you're keeping it under pressure, so you only have to worry about liquid water, but you have to make sure that the system is maintained at pressure. So there are pros and cons and trade-offs of both types of designs, and different engineers have different preferences for which one is easier to design and handle. Advanced reactor commercialization requires coordination and planning across all stages of the nuclear supply chain. You have to do mining of the uranium and milling and converting it and enriching it. Naturally occurring uranium is mostly not fissile. There's only some isotopes of uranium that can undergo fission. And so you have to enrich naturally occurring uranium so that it has enough fissile material in the form of uranium that can undergo fission. And then you do fuel fabrication, you make those fuel assemblies that we looked at earlier. They have to go into reactor. And then of course the reactor produces electricity or co-products or other applications. Some low-level waste comes off, some high-level waste goes into wet storage, dry storage. In some countries there's reprocessing, not in the US, but in a lot of other countries. And then that spent fuel can be stored for use in the future or go into long-term storage or ultimately permanent storage. To be a little bit more specific about the pathway of spent fuel, first, when a spent fuel assembly comes out of the reactor, it's cooled in what are called spent fuel pools. Then it's moved inside of casks or dry storage for isolation and continued cooling for up to 100 years. These are very secure vessels. They're really safe. It's really hard to get the material out of these casks. And then eventually the casks need to be transported to a deep geologic repository. We get the what about the waste question a lot with nuclear energy. So basically the quantities are small and similar to what we were talking about earlier and how much energy that you actually use. It's a very small amount of mass. Similarly, the waste is a very small amount of mass. If all the power you ever used came from nuclear, your lifetime waste would fit in a soda can. And again, this is for a US citizen, so it would be less for most citizens throughout the world. And spent nuclear fuel, or sometimes called SNF, is well managed by the nuclear industry under the oversight of national safety regulators. And in our case, in the US, it's the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And SNF can be permanently disposed of in deep geological formations. And Finland is building such a permanent repository, and they're almost finished, and they're actually in the testing phase of placing waste. While we in the US and in many other countries have yet to find a permanent repository, we know how to track and safely manage SNF and keep it from harming people while we search for permanent solutions. Advanced nuclear energy adds flexibility and versatility in comparison to conventional nuclear energy through innovative designs. And the key things that are different between conventional and advanced nuclear energy relate to reactor size, reactor technology, generation type, and the safety approach. Generally, conventional nuclear energy comes in predominantly large sizes, generally more than 1,000 megawatts in the US. And advanced nuclear energy is much more versatile. You can have microreactors at 1.5 megawatts to 300 or even more megawatt electrics. This is more the SMR range. And you can, a lot of these come in modules, so you can go even bigger just by stacking modules. Conventional nuclear energy is generally light water reactors, whereas advanced nuclear energy is a wide variety of reactor technologies, which I'll get into a little bit more in a moment. Conventional nuclear energy is generally used as baseload generation. You're running it all the time, whereas in advanced nuclear energy, you could operate it all the time. You also can use it in a more flexible mode, and it's more flexible and dispatchable. And conventional nuclear energy generally is designed with active safety systems, which means that an operator has to intervene if you have a safety issue, whereas the advanced nuclear energy is designed with inherent safety systems where to keep the reactor safe requires less human intervention. Sort of the natural mode of an inherently safe reactor is for it to go into a safe mode. So there's less intervention required to keep it safe. We believe that conventional reactors are quite safe. It just takes a lot more work to keep it that way. As an example of advanced nuclear energy adding flexibility and flexibility and versatility in comparison to conventional nuclear through innovative design, you have this example of a conventional nuclear energy plant. This is the Sequoia nuclear plant in Tennessee. It's got 2 units, total of 2,440 megawatts, and it's a pressurized light water reactor. This is an example of advanced nuclear energy. This is the TerraPower Natrium reactor that's being it just started construction in Wyoming, and it's about 345 megawatt electric, and it's actually got 500 megawatt peak capacity. It's a sodium fast reactor with molten salt integrated storage system, which means that you can actually generate this 345 megawatts. And then if the grid doesn't need that much energy, you can take some of that energy and put it in this molten salt storage system. And then when the grid needs it, you can actually put it back on the grid. And that's how you can get up to this higher peak generation. Unfortunately, the terminology on conventional and advanced nuclear energy is inconsistent. So you'll see a lot of people use the terms existing nuclear energy, conventional nuclear energy. Sometimes they say generation 1, 2, or 3 nuclear technology. You'll see all of that type of terminology. And then within the advanced nuclear reactors space, you'll hear lots of different terminologies. A lot of people use the term small modular reactors. Also, you hear light water SMRs. You might hear Gen 3 plus technology, generation 3 plus technology, microreactors, non-light water reactors, generation 4 technology. And what we at NIA generally do is we put all of these in the same bucket of advanced nuclear energy, and then there's lots of different types. And that's how we talk about it. But some people will get into much more specific types of advanced nuclear energy and use that terminology. The definition of advanced nuclear energy includes a variety of nuclear technologies with different advantages and trade-offs. And a couple of the distinctions you might hear are thermal fission versus fast fission. This is the set on the left is thermal, and the set on the right is fast. And generally, what thermal fission refers to is the speed of the neutrons that are doing the fission. So thermal fission tends to have slower neutrons, and the fast fission has faster neutrons. So fast fission can give you some advantages, for example, in efficiency. And within thermal fission, there's a lot of different types. The one that's probably nearest to commercialization is at scale. They're all sort of in the process of being commercialized to varying degrees, are advanced light water reactors, because that's an evolutionary design from the existing reactors with inherent safety features. Then there are other types of reactors that tend to use either different fuel types, different fuel forms, or different types of coolants. And we, as light water reactors, use water as the coolant, but you can actually use a lot of other things as coolant. And a lot of them have different trade-offs, different pros and cons. A really interesting fuel form, if you feel like getting into it, we can send you some more information, is TRISO. This is a type of fuel that a lot of people are excited about. It's a very robust fuel form. It really works well. They basically take very small particles of uranium and put it in a ball of carbon that is very stable and can keep the the fuel essentially becomes like containment. So it's very hard for the fuel to get out and to be released into the environment. Over 60 companies around the world are in the process of developing commercial advanced reactor technologies. And here are some of the examples. Many of these companies are large companies who have been in the nuclear business for a long time, who may be familiar to you. A lot of them are startups. This is a really interesting culture now, both in the United States and abroad, where you have a lot of companies who are doing very innovative work, and they have innovative technologies. And it's a really exciting time to be in this business. In the United States, a lot of our progress is being driven by public-private partnerships between the US government and these technology companies. And it's got both public and private investment going into it. And that's accelerating the demonstration and deployment of advanced reactors. We have university research microreactors, we have demonstration and test microreactors, we have demonstration non-light water reactors, and we have commercial small modular light water reactors. And here are some examples that are coming in the next several years to decade. And it's very exciting. And these different colors go with the different colors of the squares. And these are the different projects that we're seeing. Also, all of these companies in parallel are going through the US Nuclear Regulatory Commission process and engaging at various stages of what that NRC process looks like. It starts with pre-application engagement, and then you have to actually make an application, and then NRC reviews your application. So this is all happening in parallel. We're developing the technology, we're developing the business models, and we're also making sure that the regulation works as well, and that these reactors demonstrate their safety to the US Nuclear Regulatory Commission. These are some examples of North American utility partners, industrial energy users, and the US and other governments have expressed interest in deploying advanced nuclear energy. And so this is a lot of, these are the folks who are sort of partnering with the technology developers. They're the potential customers, investors. Dow is particularly interesting. They are partnering with the X Energy company, which is developing a modular reactor that's a high temperature gas reactor. Dow is very excited about that particular technology because they're very interested in using the high temperature heat that a high temperature gas reactor can produce. So that particular technology is of particular interest to them. And Dow is interesting as well because they are very experienced in building large projects, and they are serving as the project developer on that particular project. Global utility partners, industrial energy users, and governments have expressed interest in deploying advanced nuclear energy. And here's some examples beyond North America. This chart is these little bubbles show where there are advanced nuclear reactors either in operation, that's green dots, under construction, that's orange, under manufacturing, lighter orange, yellow's licensing, light blue is planned, and dark blue is proposed. There's been some recent agreements between nuclear energy companies and tech companies to have nuclear energy power AI and data centers. There was a recent announcement with Kairos Power and Google to deploy 500 megawatts across the United States by 2035 of Kairos Power's reactor. And the idea is to produce 24/7 clean energy for Google's AI work and their data centers. There's also a recent agreement between X Energy, Amazon, and Energy Northwest. Amazon's making a $500 million investment in X Energy's advanced small modular reactors. And it'll be about 320 megawatt 4-unit project planned in Washington State. And that's Energy Northwest is the power company there. And 5 gigawatts to be brought online in the US by 2039. So beyond just that one project. Another recent agreement is to restart one of the units at 3 Mile Island, not the one that underwent the accident. There was an accident at TMI in 1979 at one of the units, but the other unit continued to operate through 2019. It's in really good shape, but it did start the decommissioning process, but it's in a state that we call safe storage. So it's relatively easy to restart. It's not trivial to restart a reactor, but some of them are much easier to restart than others. So this is a very exciting agreement as well. And this is between Microsoft and Constellation. And TMI, 3 Mile Island, will produce clean power for Microsoft, and they expect to create 3,400 jobs by restarting this reactor, and 16 billion is expected to be added to Pennsylvania's GDP. The wide variety of advanced reactor designs enable the integration of advanced nuclear into future energy systems. We've talked about the value of firm generation that you can count on. There's a lot of excitement in the US around replacing retiring fossil fuel plants. The TerraPower project that I mentioned in Wyoming is a replacement for a retiring coal plant. Process heat is of a lot of interest. This is the X-Energy project I mentioned that they're doing in partnership with Dow Chemical. And data centers are just an enormous growth area, and a lot of excitement around using nuclear energy to power data centers and to meet this enormous growth that we're expecting from data centers, and to be available 24/7. So they need it. They need a lot of power. They need it to be reliable, and the companies have committed to making that power that they use clean. So it's a really good combination for for nuclear energy to meet those needs. And then there's a lot of interest in using nuclear energy for remote locations, and microreactors are a pretty interesting technology here. The Defense Department is actually, U.S. Defense Department is very interested in microreactors for military bases, for energy uses on the battlefield. And then there's also a lot of interest, for example, in remote communities like in Alaska, to use nuclear energy. And it's a good source of reliable, always available energy that can be powered in, that you can put pretty much anywhere. So 3 fast takeaways that hopefully you got out of this presentation. Nuclear energy can play a major role in creating a clean energy economy. Advanced reactors have a wide array of different commercial use cases, and recent agreements and investments demonstrate momentum both here and abroad. So with that, I will stop sharing screen and take some questions.
Thank you very much, Judy. That was 30 minutes of round the world. Let me just stop my video. Okay, there you go. Yeah, great overview. And just a reminder to the audience, if you have questions, please type them in the Q&A box, not the chat, so that we just look in one area. And we have quite a bit of time, maybe about 45 minutes. Let's see how we go. I am just going to jump straight into audience questions first, even though I have a few. First one from Rosman Hamza, asking on slide 25, am I right to interpret the chart that commercial small modular light water reactors are only available after 2030?
No, there's a range of different designs that are sort of, it's a bit of a race in the United States, and we're looking to different companies or have different plans to put different reactors on in different timescales. So it's somewhere in the next few years, we're going to start seeing demonstration reactors. I think the way we would describe it is that we're having a lot of demonstrations now, and we expect full scale commercialization in the 2030s. But a lot of there is a lot of activity, and we're going to get at least a few plants this decade.
Right. And so on the same vein, I think there are just only a few that have been approved by the Nuclear Regulatory Committee, right?
Yeah, so we're still in early days at the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. They are in the process of reviewing either pre-applications before they actually companies put full-blown applications in, or they're actually doing a few application reviews. But it's just the first few are tough and they take a while. And then the expectation is that we'll get experience from that, and we'll be able to both get more applications and also review them faster.
Okay, great. There's actually 2 questions here that are related. One is anonymous, the other is from Dave. We'd love to know more about reprocessing of spent fuel, the potential challenges. How can it reduce the need for mining uranium? And sort of related to that, Dave asks, what happens to a module in an SMR once it's depleted? Does the manufacturer take it back the module, or is there another process?
So on the second one, I don't know. Maybe we
Yeah.
can answer that for the next discussion. I'll try to find out. I don't think we know yet whether we'll do take back. I think there's going to be an evolution, because at the beginning, for the first few, you're not going to have the scale to be making lots of modules, but the idea is to get to a point where you're making lots of modules, and then you could imagine a scenario where you could take them back. And it could be that for the first few, they will do that.
Right.
But that's still TBD.
Mhm.
And then back on reprocessing. So the question was pros and cons of reprocessing. Is that the...
Yeah. We'd love to know more about reprocessing of spent fuel, the potential challenges. How can it reduce the need for mining uranium?
Yeah, so it definitely can reduce the need for mining uranium. We do actually have a lot of uranium in the world. So there are many countries that have been doing reprocessing successfully, and that does reduce their need for fresh uranium. It doesn't completely eliminate it, because you can't reuse everything. And it doesn't also completely eliminate the need for some type of waste disposal, because there are still some waste products that have to be disposed of. So there's good news about reprocessing. It can reduce how much waste you have to dispose of. It can also reduce the amount of new uranium that you need to mine, and mining has impact. So there are definite upsides. The problem historically with reprocessing has been it's very expensive. And because it's very expensive and uranium is relatively pretty easy to get, the economics haven't worked out in a lot of cases.
Yep.
But there's a lot of innovation going on in reprocessing, just as there is innovation going on in nuclear energy in general. And there are new approaches to reprocessing that might be cheaper and more effective. So there's a lot of research and development and commercialization efforts on that side as well. There's one company, Oklo, for example, who's really interested, and they use the term recycling. Other people use the word reprocessing, where they plan to use recycled fuel, and they're pursuing that. They have a joint program with the Department of Energy working on recycling, and that's their goal for their reactors, is that they'll be able to use recycled fuel at least over time.
Excellent, thank you. Just thank you to the audience again. Put your questions in the Q&A box, not the live chat. And they're coming in fast and furious, but just a caveat, I think some of these questions you will also be addressing in more detail in the second session of our webinar on the 9th of January, but it's good that people are thinking ahead as well. So here, what is the cost of investment for SMR plus data centers? How much more expensive is it to set up such data centers? What must be considered?
So data centers are going to need a lot of energy, and they have a lot of choices on what types of energy they can use. They can try to get energy from the grid, which is essentially getting it from a mix of sources. And they could do, there's a lot of different options, but there are very few options that give them the reliable, the clean, and the amounts that they want in order to run their operations. So I think the idea is that for the first few reactors, they are going to be more expensive, because we're still in early mover stage, and we're still figuring out and demonstrating these technologies. And what the data center folks are essentially saying is that they're willing to upfront invest more in the first few in order to reap the benefits of getting many more later. And it's hard to find customers who can reap the benefits of bringing down the costs over time. And that's sort of one of the things that's particularly interesting about the data centers, is that they see this very enormous demand coming. So even if they have to pay more for the first few, that they'll help demonstrate and bring down the costs over time, and then they'll reap the benefits of getting it to be more cost effective over time. The government is another player who will, reap the benefits on behalf of all of us. for demonstrating these technologies and paying more for the first few, and then over time we'd bring down the costs. And basically we need investors, both private and public, who are willing to invest in early mover technologies and then reap those benefits over time.
Thank you. And just for the audience, it's interesting that, as Judy mentioned, 3 Mile Island was closed in 2019, and that was due to high running costs. And yet Microsoft has now come in and are restarting at even higher costs because they see the value in it. So next question, again, this is probably for part 2, but I think maybe you could just give us a sort of, this could be a taste of what's going to come in January. But the question is, what would be the recommended approach to establish a regulatory and governance framework for countries new to nuclear energy? And Eileen C. is asking this one.
Yeah, it's a great question. So the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission does do that sort of work. They will meet with other countries and give them information about lessons learned. So I do think some of it is about learning from the existing regulatory commissions, not just the US one. There's also Canada, the UK. There are several really top-notch regulators who you can learn from. And that would be the beginning, as in, if you sort of look back historically, what happened in the US, you need underlying laws. So you'd need a statute. We have something called the Atomic Energy Act. You need regulations, you need people who are trained, you need nuclear engineers, you need scientists and people who can make sure that reactors are safe, you need engineers. So it's making sure that you have the right underlying statutes, the right regulatory structures, the right people, and then you can do regulation. And you looking to the models that exist is a really great start, and then tailoring that to the particular country that you're in.
Thank you. Yeah, maybe a quick plug or shout out for the World Nuclear Association. I was in the symposium in London, and it happens the first week of September every year. And they have a division that is looking into policy and industry engagement. They probably, as Judy said, if you want to look around the world, that may be the one stop to get started as well. This next question comes from KJ Kimis. Hi, KJ. So how soon can an SMR plant be deployed and brought online in a country like Malaysia? Could you share an indicative timeline? Again, maybe something for January, but let's give it a shot.
So I'm not sure how much work you'd have to do first, but I do, in the US, we're expecting to start deploying this decade and then really going at scale next decade. So I'm guessing Malaysia won't go faster than that, but I guess you never know. Maybe you'll outpace us. So I'd say that's something along the timeline is, getting the first few up and running this decade and then really going full scale the following decade. So if you sort of, working back, I don't know how long your legislative and other processes work. You want to set up the institutions to make sure that it's regulated and kept safe, and you need the people to run it and the businesses. So it would probably take a little while, but you also can learn by doing, and you could be simultaneously building a project and working on the regulatory systems to make sure that you can oversee it and getting the people together. So it could be that you could catch up to us.
Yeah. Well, we have a long way to catch up. You already have 100 gigawatts, but we'll try. Yeah. Actually, again, back to the World Nuclear Association Symposium in September, UAE, they launched their fourth AP 1400 in London when it went live. And their experience was it took 5 years to put 1.4 gigawatt reactors. But talking to the people at WNA, they said it took them maybe another 5 years before that for the regulatory environment. So 10 years to get, what's that, 6.6 gigawatts? Yeah, so let's hope. From Grace, how safe are these reactors for the people who work on site, as well as the surrounding areas? In other words, are there any health concerns due to the presence of these reactors? And maybe sort of along those lines, what is the approval rating for nuclear reactors for people who live around the area?
So I don't know quite what you mean by approval rating, but
Yeah.
basically, if you live near a nuclear reactor, it's very safe. And for the people who work at the nuclear reactor, it's very safe. What you have to do though is you have to make sure that you have the right training, the right rules, and the right practices to make sure that it's safe. Nuclear energy and radiation is something you have to be very careful with. You don't want to expose people. You want to make sure that you treat it with care. And the reason that the nuclear energy industry has been successful in the US is that we've treated it very carefully. For example, we probably treat nuclear waste more carefully than any other waste stream I can think of. Every company is responsible for knowing where every ounce or molecule of the nuclear waste is at any time, and making sure that they take responsibility for it and make sure that it's dealt with very carefully. Similarly, if you work in a power plant, you will wear a radiation monitor. You'll make sure that you don't get an unsafe dose of radiation. If you're near a nuclear power plant, there's a lot of measurement to make sure that it's very safe. So I think that there is some, I guess, mythology about that these reactors are not safe, that they can cause problems, but actually it's, as I showed in my graph, it's actually the safest form of energy that we know of, sort of running neck and neck with solar.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, if you, as the audience, if you remember back to that graph, that's per terawatt hour. Solar was 0.02, nuclear 0.03, and wind 0.04. So they both, they're all three anchor the bottom. But if you look at hydropower, it's 43 times more deaths than nuclear. Gas is 94 times more deaths. Oil is 615 times more deaths. Coal is 820 times more deaths. And brown coal is 1090 times more deaths. So I think, like Judy says, nuclear keeps track of all its waste. With the latter three, they just throw the waste into the environment. So that's been the cause of death. The questions are coming in fast and furious. We have one from, again, Rosman Hamza. Malaysia's energy sector is generally conservative on insisting proven technology. How can we be assured of adopting new technology in the form of SMRs?
So I think, again, I mean, I would work with other countries, other companies. You'd want to make sure that you're working with people who know what they're doing. I do think that it's like any other technology. You would need good partners. You would need to make sure that you had confidence that they were going to do what they're supposed to do. And then you're going to need to build up your institutions to make sure that there is an entity who watches out for the public interest, as well as engaging with companies and their new technologies.
Okay, thank you. And then this one's from Tan Sri Wahid. Hi, Tan Sri. Thanks, Judy. How do we, again, it's repeating on a theme, but I thought it might be good to address it again. How do we address the public anxiety towards nuclear energy SMRs when existing rare earth plants are already causing much concern from some segments of society in Malaysia? The NIMBY issue, not in my backyard.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's really no other way to do it besides education. I think it's important to show people the charts that I showed earlier, that it's very safe. I think you probably want to, if people are concerned, to have them visit a nuclear plant, or to have training or videos just showing what people, so people understand what exactly the technology is. And you have to have a trusted regulator. In the end, ordinary people aren't going to know for sure, but they have to have some type of entity that they can trust, that will make sure that that the reactor is safe, and that the whole energy system, the whole supply chain, the whole fuel cycle, that it's all safe. So it requires you know, good businesses, good regulations, good technology, etc.
Great. This one was a question of mine, so I thought I'd throw it in here as a follow-up. I mean, given nuclear's stellar safety record, why has nuclear energy got such a bad rep?
A great question. So I'm not sure. I think that some of it is just lack of education. People just don't know actually that they don't sort of look into how it compares to other forms of energy. You know, we need, in order to have a modern society, you need materials and energy. So you always have to ask the question, you know, I need these materials, I need these energy, this amount of energy. So how am I going to get it? And what are my different options? And then you have to fairly compare them. And I think in the early days of nuclear energy, there was a lot of enthusiasm, but a little bit after that, people started to look at the aspects of nuclear energy that they didn't like, and they said, well, I don't like this, but they didn't really think about, well, what am I going to replace that with? And certainly in the United States, there were a lot of plants that were canceled, and then instead we built coal plants or gas plants, and you know, it was probably a mistake. But at the time, we weren't really thinking about, okay, this is what this particular technology can do for us. This is what this other technology can do for us. Every technology has risks, has benefits. You just have to make sure that you are careful with them and that you have people who know what they're doing running them, and that you take advantage of innovation over time. And that's really what we've successfully did in the United States and in many other countries. And so I think some of it is just is education. Like I said, there's only so much you can do. I think some things about why it has a bad rap is I think that in the United States, we have this popular cartoon called The Simpsons.
Yes, everyone knows it. I was going to say.
Which, you know, you sort of see this nuclear power plant that is not really a good representation of a nuclear power plant. I mean, no nuclear power plant looks anything like that. And so I think some of it is, you know, mythology that's either propagated in popular culture or, you know, something that someone read that's not correct. So we really just have to do a better job of making clear to people what nuclear energy can do and what its limitations are, and also that it's not that there are no risks, it's just that we are good at managing those risks, and we have to make sure we do that.
Thank you. And here's a good one from Dave. Isn't the big downside to reprocessing that it creates weapons-grade materials? The US does not reprocess for ethical reasons.
Yeah, so that's definitely an issue, and that was certainly an issue with a lot of the reprocessing or at least some of the reprocessing technologies historically. What people are working on now are different types of reprocessing technologies that they think might be more proliferation resistant. That's the term that we use, that it would be harder to divert the material. So there are some interesting innovative approaches that are being developed that might be better than the other ones where you had a chance that you could actually produce byproducts that actually could be diverted to weapons. And so that was something. So that was a big downside, which is one of the key reasons that the U.S. has not pursued it, as well as the cost. The cost has been prohibitive to many folks. So people are doing these innovative approaches or working on innovative approaches and trying to get the cost down, as well as making them more proliferation resistant.
Okay, great. Here's one. What are the advantages and disadvantages of SMRs compared to large conventional reactors? And why is there a lot of focus on SMRs when they are not yet operationally proven?
Yeah, so I think there's several. One is that they're small and that they're modular, right? The sort of title gives away what people are excited about. So not everyone has enough energy or energy growth to support a very large reactor, because they come in very large increments of power. So if you have a more modest need for energy, you might want to go with an SMR route, and then you can add them modularly. So it helps with matching the growth that you see in your energy use with the size of the reactor. The other exciting thing about small modular reactors is that right now, generally reactors are mostly stick built on site. So they're all kind of bespoke. And so that takes a lot of work and it's expensive, and it's sort of each project is its own big mega project, and you're doing them one at a time. The idea with SMRs, now the first few, we're still working them out, and the early movers, we won't be able to do this yet, but the idea is that over time, you would actually factory produce a lot of the components. So you would wind up doing a lot in a manufacturing facility, and then you'd ship the components to a site, and then all you'd have to do is assemble it rather than building the whole reactor. So that's very exciting. And so the idea is you would get essentially economies of manufacturing as opposed to economies of scale of the plant, which is what we get with more conventional reactors. And then the other exciting thing about the SMRs is that they have these inherent safety features. So they are easier to keep safe. Like I said earlier, we think conventional reactors are quite safe, but the SMRs are easier to keep safe.
Thank you. This one's from Ralph Dixon. Hi, Ralph. How viable would SMR tech be for offshore energy or ammonia or pink hydrogen production? And what are the relative efficiency losses compared to fossil fuels?
Yeah, so people are working on making, you can definitely make hydrogen using nuclear energy. There is a big initiative in the United States to do hydrogen production, including with nuclear energy. So that there are definitely a lot of advantages of making hydrogen from nuclear energy. There's lots of different ways to make hydrogen. And certainly it can be a zero carbon method of making hydrogen if you use nuclear energy as your source of energy. So that's a big upside. And particularly if it depends, of course, on the cost of the power. So there's a lot of interest in starting with existing plants to do some early work on hydrogen, and those would be relatively inexpensive. And then over time, as we expect and hope the costs of the small modular reactors to come down, we expect that you could potentially make hydrogen competitive with other energy sources without making greenhouse gas emissions, which is a key advantage that nuclear would have, for example, compared to making hydrogen from fossil fuels. And then I think there was another question in there. What was the other question?
It was about ammonia. Yeah. Let me just look it up again. Similarly, and what are the energy losses compared to fossil fuel efficiency? Yeah, relative efficiency losses compared to fossil fuels.
So I think it would be pretty similar. It depends how like I said, it depends how you're making it. I mean, there's a method of making hydrogen from natural gas, which is called steam methane reforming, and you sort of get it right out of the natural gas. But if you're making hydrogen from electrolysis, then that's pretty similar in terms of energy losses between, for example, nuclear or renewables.
So it's less about the energy source and more about the process of making it then.
Yeah, and there's certainly reason to believe that we could do this quite efficiently.
Okay.
I mean, you do have to first make electricity, but that's true of any type of process where you'd make hydrogen using electrolysis, for example, through renewables. It's the combination of wanting to make hydrogen, where there's lots of different ways, but also wanting to make it without producing greenhouse gases in the process. And that sort of leads you to nuclear and some other energy sources that can do that.
Here's one about what strategies do US policymakers use to manage and increase public acceptance of nuclear energy?
It's a great question. Probably the government itself hasn't been doing that much, near as I can tell. I think it's more actually entities like us, the sort of civil society has been doing a lot of work on education, as has the industry. I think we're, not to toot our own horn, but I think we're a pretty good messenger because we don't have any commercial interest in nuclear energy. We just study it, and we give out the facts. There's certainly a lot of activity and people doing education. The government itself, I'm trying to think that maybe there is, and I'll try to get that answer for you before the next part too. But I don't know of specific like initiatives where the US government is educating the public specifically on nuclear energy. Certainly there are public officials in the US, like the Secretary of Energy, talks a lot about nuclear energy. I mean, I think a lot of people in the US Department of Energy talk about energy, provide education on that. Oh yeah, actually there's also national labs, forgot about that. A lot of the US national labs do a lot of educational work and provide a lot of information on nuclear energy, and certainly our universities. We have nuclear energy programs. We have a lot of our universities that do energy, including nuclear, do a lot of public education and better understanding of how to more effectively communicate about energy.
Great, great. And by the way, for the audience, in case you missed it, and as Judy says, she doesn't want to toot her own horn, so I will. The Nuclear Innovation Alliance is not a think tank; it's a think and do tank. So tell us a bit about that do part. You were saying about public advocacy and
Yeah, so the thinking is we do a lot of research and analysis, and we produce a lot of pretty reports that I showed you some covers on. The do part is we try to catalyze action, and we catalyze action in a number of fronts. We work a lot with educating policymakers so that policy is better informed. We do that a lot at the US federal level, also at the state level. A lot of US policy is made at the state level as well. So that's a lot of the sort of action side, is to encourage and inform policymaker action. We also do that a lot with the in the US, it's both like legislative side, so like the Congress as well as the administration. We've done a number of reports, for example, making recommendations for how the Department of Energy could do its work more efficiently and effectively. We have a lot of work on how different legislative approaches would be more efficient and effective. We spend a lot of time on Nuclear Regulatory Commission reform. That's an important piece of, particularly for advanced reactors. A lot of the rules at the Nuclear Regulatory Commission are more tailored towards conventional reactors, so they need to be opened up more so that all different types of reactors can be fairly assessed. So there's a fair amount of work that we do on that front. We also do a lot of catalyzing action with investors and businesses, so educating potential private investors and businesses about nuclear energy so that they can fairly assess it. We have a paper, for example, it's called Due Diligence Guide for Advanced Reactors, to sort of help investors understand what the merits and what they have to look for when they're looking at a nuclear energy investment. And then we have a work stream now on what does nuclear project development look like, which can be complicated. Again, for the few first movers, we expect it'll become simpler once things become more standardized. But for the first early mover projects, how you actually get a project developed, financed, and commercialized is a complex set of activities. And so we've been doing a fair amount of work unpacking that and helping people to figure out what roles different people could play, and also what policymakers could do to support that.
Okay, thank you. This question from Dave, I think I'm going to defer it to maybe part 2, but I'll read it anyway. What does a 300 megawatt SMR plant cost? And what's the lifetime cost of power per kilowatt hour? And what percentage of SMR power attributable to the capital cost? So maybe we defer this one to the next session, as well as...
Yeah, we probably should. And the answer is going to be a little bit all over the map. There's... but I'll for the next one, I'll show some charts. We have our Idaho National Laboratory, which is one of our national laboratories, has done some cost work recently, and there's a big range of cost estimates, and it's important to make a distinction between what are the first of a kind costs, which will likely be high, and the nth of a kind costs, which we expect will be reasonable and competitive. I should say about costs is it's important to make sure that when you assess nuclear costs, that you do a fair assessment. The nuclear power plant, because it's firm, has a lot of benefits to the grid. So it's you have to be careful that you're taking into account the benefits that you can count on it, as opposed to, for example, variable clean energy, which also can be clean. But if it's variable and you can't count on it, you have to actually make sure that you're comparing apples to apples and make sure that you're comparing the system benefits that nuclear energy provides.
Yeah, good. I think what we'll do also, we'll ask the organizers to add a link in the show notes to the US Department of Energy's report on pathways to commercial liftoff for advanced nuclear. There'll be some cost comparisons there as well.
Yes.
Now this one's interesting. Data centers are willing to invest in first-of-a-kind SMRs. What about oil and gas industry? They are amongst the largest contributors to emissions.
So there is some interest in particular, and there's actually a lot of interest, but in particular, one thing that we've been looking into a lot is there's some interest in using microreactors for oil field operations.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be super interesting because if that flies, that's a lot of microreactors, and you could get a lot of early mover learning quite quickly because you can build microreactors relatively quickly. And you could actually do a lot of learn by doing, and that could be significant in the evolution of the technology. So that's very interesting. And so there's a lot of interest in that. And yes, more broadly speaking, a number of the oil companies are looking into all types of energy sources. In addition, a lot of them think of themselves as energy companies, not just oil companies. But that particular use case, there's been a lot of talk about it back in the US.
Okay, thank you. This is maybe two questions that maybe I'll put into one, and then I'll throw mine in as well. Apart from, this is Kentai Saw, apart from uranium being used for the nuclear plants, is there any alternative fuel that can be used so that radiation can be controlled effectively? And then what is the current state of alternative nuclear fuels such as thorium? And then my question, which people sometimes say, oh, let's skip fission and let's wait for fusion. So maybe you want to comment about all those kind of technology related questions.
Yeah, so there is some interest in thorium. There are people who are working on that, and there is some work going on. I would say most of the work that we see and most of I'd say the overwhelming majority, like all the examples that I showed, are still using uranium. They're often using it in different forms, and that the fuel form can really matter in terms of how well the reactor performs and also what kind of waste you produce. So there is a lot of variations on the uranium theme, but mostly they are using uranium. Fusion is super interesting. There's a lot of private investment going into fusion in the US now. And of course, there's been a lot of public investment over many years and in many countries working on fusion. But there is a lot of, again, similar to that set of companies that I showed earlier, there are a lot of companies working on fusion. I would say that fusion is also very promising, probably on a somewhat longer time scale than fission, but still very important and good that people are working on that. And, we at the Nuclear Innovation Alliance support all types of clean energy. So certainly keeping an eye on fusion as well. We do a little bit of work on fusion, but we mostly work on fission, mainly because of our assessment of the relevant timescales.
Right. There used to be a joke that fusion is always 15 to 20 years away.
Right. I think it's getting closer.
Getting closer. Yeah.
I think recently this sort of the new entry of commercial entities into the space is really game changing. For a long time, this was fusion was really an enterprise of big governments. And, not just one governments in collaboration with one another as well. But there is a lot of private sector interest. And so they are definitely looking at speeding up the timetables, but it's still a little bit a ways away.
And if I could add a comment, maybe it's not either or, but all of the above.
Yeah, we're definitely all of the above. We need a lot of energy. We need a lot of clean energy. So there's plenty of room for lots of different energy sources to meet, to reduce energy poverty, to meet energy security needs, and of course to fight climate change.
Yeah, great. know Azhar's question again, sort of related to part two, and maybe we differ. What's the approximate range of cost for these advanced nuclear reactors? Thank you, I know. We'll address that on 9th of January. Grace, the Fukushima disaster caused many deaths to people living there. How should countries take steps to avoid this happening if they take on this nuclear energy business? If I could just jump in, I think 13,000 people died in Fukushima from the tsunami. But do you know how many from the nuclear meltdown?
So my understanding is that the deaths were all from the tsunami.
Yep.
I mean, this is something that there's an example of something that there's confusion about. I mean, the tsunami was a disaster, and a lot of people did lose their lives, and that's really unfortunate. And it was a bad accident, and it shouldn't happen. And there's a lot of measures being taken to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But in terms of people actually getting exposed to radiation, it was minimal. It was really the tsunami that was the actual disaster.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, and
the cleanup which they're doing now is going to take a really long time.
Yeah. So Johan Abdulrazak, hi Johan, asked a similar question. I guess Fukushima globally spooked the public at large. How could you help explain how Fukushima was an exception? And I guess this is less about the deaths, but the fact that the accident happened.
Yeah, so it does seem that there's been a lot of work on this, and I'll try to maybe find some more stuff for that for next time as well. But it does a big issue apparently in Fukushima was backup power, and basically the reactor needed, if the main power shut down, it needed to go to backup power to keep the reactor operating. And what happened is that the backup power systems were located at actually a lower elevation than the plant. So they wound up being flooded out, and then you couldn't use the backup power. And then if there was no power going to the reactor, then you had what's called a loss of coolant accident. You didn't have enough of coolant going to keep the reactor from overheating. And so a lot of, in the United States, at least after the Fukushima accident, there was a lot of work to make sure that backup power was appropriately located, and also that we had enough hours of backup power. And then, of course, for the new generation of plants that have these passive safety systems, a lot of the accident scenarios, the particular accident scenario that happened at Fukushima would not be possible. So there's lots of reasons why we learned a lot from that, and should get much better at it, and why the new generation should be in much better shape.
Right. Yeah. This reminds me of the airline industry. I mean, when accidents happen, the planes get safer and safer. Here, there's another one. In terms of cost compared to other sources of energy, fossil fuels, renewables, roughly how much cheaper or more expensive is it to produce from SMRs, the equivalent 1 megawatt of power?
So it's a good question, and it gets complicated because it's related to the whole system. So certainly at the moment, with the very early mover technologies, they're going to be more expensive. But over time, we expect that they'll be comparable to other power sources that you use in our energy system, natural gas, hydropower, coal, and they'll also be clean. So it depends how you value the benefits of being clean and the value of being firm or reliable. But our assessment, certainly the existing reactors are competitive if you do the calculations right and you think of them as part of a system. And then similarly, we expect that to be similar for the SMRs over time.
Yeah, I think also if you refer to that the Department of Energy liftoff report that I mentioned, it also shows that when you add nuclear to the mix of renewables and battery storage in the role for decarbonization, the costs actually come down by 37%. So
if you're trying to decarbonize an energy system, nuclear really helps you. And And there's a nice graph, I'll try to find this for the next one, from the
Great.
liftoff report, where they compare everything that's clean and firm, which isn't a lot of things, and nuclear is quite competitive.
Excellent. We have one from engineer G. Lakchan. What would your comments be for proposed SMRs or conventional nuclear plants in ASEAN, especially for the countries on the Ring of Fire? And he says he's from Malaysia. So we're excluded from the Ring of Fire, but around us is all these sort of volcanic region. Yeah.
So I think it really depends on the power needs and where you're going to put them. There are next generation large plants that are quite also have these passive safety features, like the AP1000 that we just built in the United States. We just finished the second one that last year. So there are definitely good choices in the very large power plant range if you need that much power. And if you need power in smaller increments, you can go with the SMRs, or if you need tiny increments of power, you can go with microreactors. So it really depends on how much power you need, and how much room you have to put it, and how much money you have. I mean, they're different sizes to meet different needs. Another example of it matters what you're going to use the power for. Again, if these high temperature gas reactors are particularly interesting for industrial applications. So if you need high temperature heat for an industrial process, you might want to go with one of those technologies. As I mentioned earlier, you have the Natrium reactor that has this interesting connection to the storage facility. It's an integrated, it's a small modular reactor, but it's integrated with a molten salt storage system, so that you can actually have a more flexible power plant that could work with a particular grid. So we don't think that like all of the different reactors that people are working on are all going to succeed, but probably more than one will, because you're going to need different types of reactors for different use cases.
Right. Sorry, Judy. I think looking at his question again, maybe he's concerned about being located in active volcanic region.
Earthquake zone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So certainly that is something that you have to account for. Certainly at our Nuclear Regulatory Commission, you have to demonstrate that where you're going to put it is that you have to meet seismic criteria, and you'd have to be very careful where you site it and how you site it, and potentially in some situations you'd have to have take extra precautions. But that would certainly be a siting criterion, and you'd certainly have to make sure that you made sure that you accounted for that risk and minimized it. Okay, so
it's no different, I guess, for California and Japan, which are earthquake zones. So we've got 2 minutes left. I'm going to rush through two more questions. I think one from Zainul Rahim. Hi, Zainul, who asked, how are we going to assure that Chernobyl and Fukushima are exceptions rather than the norm? I think you've answered Fukushima, and if I may just jump in, Chernobyl was the same. After that, they realized they didn't have blast walls, and they've upgraded those designs, even the Russians, right? So for the Ukraine war, they've been bombing Zaporizhia nuclear plant, which is the same design as Chernobyl, and it's been okay. Final question, I'll give it to Islan Zainal Abidin. Hi, Islan. What has your experience been when engaging financial institutions in terms of their willingness to finance nuclear energy projects? I know this again is a January 9th question, but maybe 30 seconds on that, and then we'll close off. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's mixed. There's definitely some financial institutions who are interested in early mover projects. There are some who are, they'd rather be second or third or fourth or 10. So we definitely are seeing a range of interest, but there's certainly interest, and it's just a range of who wants to go first versus second, third, fourth, and fifth. The advantage of going first is that you're in there early, and then you could potentially benefit. And then the disadvantage is that those early mover projects are more expensive. So what we're trying to do, and this is the sort of goal, is to have what the Loan Program Office at DOE refers to as an order book, where you have a series of reactors, and then you can reap both the benefits of the learning by doing that happens after the first mover project. So there's a lot of interest in participating in an order book of advanced reactors. Just doing one is there's fewer people willing to brave that.
Great. Thank you, Judy. Wow, we've managed to fill the time up with a lot of audience questions. Thanks to all participants for your questions. I hope you now have more insights into the benefits of clean, safe, and affordable nuclear energy. I'd like to invite all of us to join us again on the morning of the 9th of January, where Judy will explore and share the way forward. As mentioned, we'll also add a link in the show notes to the US Department of Energy's report entitled Pathways to Commercial Liftoff for Advanced Nuclear. You know, that's a little bit of homework before you join us on the call and continue with the range of questions. So thanks again, Judy. And I'd like to hand back to Shern from Climate Governance Malaysia.
Indeed, a very sincere thank you to Judy and Dr. Tong for your insightful discussion. Well, before we conclude, we kindly ask that you share your thoughts through our feedback survey. Right, so we want to hear from you, and your feedback would be most helpful in shaping future initiatives. Well, this event has been recorded and will be made available on the Climate Governance Malaysia YouTube channel, complete with time tag, content, and accompanying blog post. We invite you to also stay engaged with us through our CGM newsletter and our official linking page for continued updates. On behalf of our team, thank you to all of you, speakers and participants, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today for this webinar and engaging in this crucial conversation. As we draw today's session to a close, we hope it has sparked meaningful discussions and provided practical perspective on the role of nuclear energy in today's world. We look forward to continuing this conversation on January 9th with the second part of this event. We wish you all a pleasant afternoon, and we hope to see you then. Thank you.